The Gandalf of modern Christianity and a giant of the faith who always had his balls out on the table, Voddie Bauchum, has gone to be with God. Let's look into a few clips of this monster of the faith. Before we check the clips of the only pastor I know who publicly preaches the culture war, for anyone new to the channel, my name is Casey. I've been a therapist for more than a decade, a father, a husband for more than a decade, and I have seen the degradation of our culture and society in these personal appointments that I've kept over the years, and it is time to look into a man who wasn't afraid of the culture war from the pulpit, Voddie Bauchum. Voddie was born in 1969, and he ended up being a pastor and eventually a missionary in Lusaka, Zambia for 10 years, where he was the one of the educators at the Christian university that was there in Zambia, where I was actually a international missionary for 4 times in short-term missions, teaching people how to do micro lending and microfinance because they weren't attuned to the banking system there. And I have a deep love for the Zambian people. They are still my homies to this day. And I'm so grateful that Voddie, they had one of the best pastors and teachers and one who is unafraid. This guy was unafraid of the culture war, Voddie Bauchum. God rest his soul. Let's look at 3 clips.
Are nervous about the idea of us working for cultural influence, are not nervous about the idea of the culture working its influence on us. Yeah. I mean, because essentially influence is going to happen. And so we have to decide, are we going to live within this culture that is actively working to impart a worldview on us and the coming generations and simply be passive about it? Or are we going to make sure that we do our job to impart a biblical worldview on us and coming generations and do it intentionally in a way that makes them aware of and opposed to the worldview that the culture is trying to impart?
Here, Voddie is calling out the fact that most Christians are so afraid to put their balls out there, to put themselves into the cultural battle because we're afraid we're not being warming or receptive or full of grace to the people who might be seeker friendly out there that are looking for us to just wave the flags and say the words that the culture wants us to say instead of working to press the church forward, because the gates of hell won't stand against her. And Voddie was a fan of participating in the battle and not shrinking away from it and not telling an untruth just because the culture tells you that's what they want to hear.
There is no wealth like being in the presence of Yahweh. So anything outside of his presence is the land of my affliction. I am looking for a city with foundations whose builder and maker is God. And until I get there, wherever I live is the land of my affliction. This is not my home. This is not as good as it gets. This is the land of my affliction, but I'm doing everything in my power to be a blessing to this land because it's where God has me right now. Heaven is our home. But in the meantime, we man our post and advance the kingdom wherever the Lord has called us to be, but never getting too comfortable, because wherever it is, no matter how good it may be, at the end of the day, it is the land of our affliction.
Here, Voddie is clearly expressing and almost prophetically saying that the earth is not his home. And while he died at a relatively young age, he knew that he was going to that better place, that better city that he mentions in this. And he is compelling all of the believers who might be in his audience to try their best to make good in the circumstances that they are, but don't get comfortable, because we still have a battle ahead. And he has taken his home. He has fought the good fight. He has finished the race. He's kept the faith. And henceforth, there is laid up for him a crown of righteousness, which God, the only righteous judge, can award to him. And I can't wait to see him again. I've never met the guy, but I look forward to hearing from him on that future day when I get called home.
Neutrality is not an option. So many Christians are under the deluded impression that if we just keep our head down, if we just go to church, if we just practice our faith in our home, that they'll leave us alone. They won't. I don't know if you've been watching lately. It's not enough for you to just refuse to be hostile. It is now demanded that you bend the knee and confess Caesar is Lord. Try to be neutral if you want to. We're just going to be neutral. We're just going to go about our life. Yep. And then your daughter lines up in the track meet and there's a boy racing her. Do you sit there, clap when the trophy is given to the biological male? What do you do when you go to work? They have this new policy at your work where you put your pronouns on everything and you say, no, I'm not going to play the game. I'm just not going to put the pronouns on there. And they say, no, it's a policy. Put your pronouns on there. Fine, I'll put my pronouns on there, but my pronouns are the pronouns that God gave me. Good for you, because that's just step one. You've put your pronouns, everybody else has put their pronouns. They come to you and they say, you must bear false witness. Look at that man and call him a woman. Neutrality is not an option.
And here Voddie is saying that being left alone and just trying to live a quiet life without engaging in the fight is not an option for the modern Christian. And this was very nearly prophetic to the life and passing of Charlie Kirk, who was stepping out into the foreground and was able to actually engage in the fight. And did they leave him alone? Absolutely not. And I suppose that Voddie is trying to speak to the Christian who believes that if they just don't get on people's nerves, if they don't say anything that seems antithetical to the liberal worldview, that they won't receive the same fate that Charlie Kirk did. But ultimately, that is a null proposition, because eventually they will press so hard that they will press into our homes if we do not press the church forward. And Voddie, I'm so sorry he's gone, because this moment is a moment for men like him who weren't afraid to push the battle forward.
That's it. Nothing else. I paused there intentionally because some of you are really uncomfortable right now because you're going, well, what about obedience? That's not what the gospel requires. It's what the gospel produces. If the gospel were to require obedience from us, then that would mean that we could be obedient apart from the person and work of Christ, and Jesus died for nothing. The gospel produces obedience in us, joyful obedience in us. And again, if we get these things mixed up, that's where we end up in legalism and moralism and works righteousness. And that's when the good news is really not good news at all.
Here, Voddie is calling us not to be too legalistic, which is strange coming from him, because he does not hold back from the ways that we would not accept from the culture, certain behaviors and certain ways about being just attuned to the secular worldview. And so, but he's telling us, do not be too rigid. Be graceful in the way that we receive, and remain open to those who might be able to come to the church, and help those seeds that are planted to not fall on rocky soil. If we have any ability to try to push for the soil to be fertile so that those coming in can receive Christ and receive it well.
Hold on. I said, hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
I thank God for Voddie Bauchum, and every time that I had a client who was maybe seeking out something about godliness and they started listening to pastors like Stephen Furtick, I would always say, go look up a Voddie Bauchum sermon. Go look up what it's like to receive expository teaching, which means teaching from the front to the back of a certain book of the Bible. That is where you need to land. And this man he really was my automatic go-to. Even in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I went to look up, what did Voddie Bauchum say? I'm so sad that he's gone. Who is going to step in to be the voice of godly men in this culture today? That's an open question, and it's probably not going to be me, but I'll try to do my part. If you would like to join me in that, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's do this together, and may God rest Voddie Bauchum's soul.